Students who come to Hanover gain a whole new perspective. We learn about math, science, modern society, and other cultures. But no one gains a new perspective on the world more than students who study abroad. On this episode of Student Spotlight, you will get to meet a student who has spent a semester down under. Welcome to HC Student Spotlight, where each episode we learn more about a student organization and what's going on here at Hanover College. I'm your host, Allison Craig. Today we will talk with a senior who spent a semester studying in Australia. I'm here today with Beth Ann Hancock. Thanks for joining me, Beth Ann.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I know that you studied at Wollongong University, which is on the southeast coast of Australia, right by the beach. A lot of students are nervous when they go study abroad in a different country or even continent because it's so far away. So can you tell me what the hardest thing was when you first arrived?
When I first arrived, there's a 14-hour time difference. So even though it was about 7 a.m. there, it was like the middle of the night for me. So it was a little different getting used to that, as well as some of the lingo they used. One of the first people that came up to me asked, "How you going?" which really threw me off because it means, "How are you doing?" But I wasn't sure if they're asking where I was going or how I was doing. So that was a little interesting, but definitely fun and nice.
Worth it? Mm-hmm. I know you ate lunch with a large lizard sometimes, but other than getting up close to nature and wildlife, how was the difference between there and Hanover's campus?
Hanover is much smaller than Wollongong. Wollongong University was approximately 20,000 students, so the whole campus life was very different. They had little cafes around campus and larger class sizes, and also it was a very different atmosphere in general.
Okay. Many students worry that if they spend a semester abroad, it will put them behind academically. And I know that you're a biology major, which is a strenuous schedule, and also a sociology minor. So how did going to Australia fit into your schedule with graduating on time?
It actually fit in perfectly. I was able to take a biology course and a sociology course that counted for credit back here. And then I took another course, happiness, which was actually awesome because we don't offer anything like that here. So it was nice to get an entirely different perspective on that.
Okay. Because it fits into schedule so easy, Hanover sends several students to Australia. When you went, who went with you, and how did that change your experience?
I actually went with two fellow seniors now, Sarah Shaw and Kristen Moore, and it was really nice just to have them, especially to adjust at the beginning to everything new. But it's also nice because we were able to branch off of each other and meet new friends and have our own experiences as well.
That's great. Obviously, Australia is a great place to study abroad because of the beautiful scenery, and it's right by the beach and such a laid-back lifestyle, but also because they speak English, but their culture is very different. So what was one of the strangest things culturally that you experienced while you were there?
One of the strangest things was definitely the different lingo, as I mentioned earlier. There was an esky as a cooler. That was a new one to get used to. And they're very laid back, which is really nice and different than what I'm used to, but it just took a little getting used to at first. I know I was on an intramural soccer team, and I'm used to being there on time and starting the game, but they were just like, "Oh, we'll see when everyone's ready, get together." So it was a very nice change, but different to get used to.
So that laid-back lifestyle, is that just on college campuses, or is it like with the government and all the safety and everything too?
It was everywhere. I actually got to visit the capital, Canberra, because one of my friends that lived in iHouse was from there, and they just made sure like anyone can walk in off the street basically into the capital, sit in on meetings, and they had a little security, but nothing like here.
Yeah.
So.
Even though campus was right by the beautiful beach, like you said, I'm sure that you wanted to travel a little bit off campus, so where did you go?
I got the opportunity to go to Cairns, which is where the Great Barrier Reef is located. So I got to scuba dive there, which was an amazing experience. But in general, on the weekends, Sydney was only about an hour and a half train ride from Wollongong. So we had the chance to travel there. They had an awesome light show that actually lit up buildings of Sydney and the Harbour Bridge, and also the just different parts of it. So it was really cool to get to do that a lot of times. And I also visited Kiama, which is really close to Wollongong, where another one of my friends was from.
Cool. Hanover students are from all over the globe, but the majority of students are still from America. So how was it going over to Australia and having American students be the minority?
It was very interesting being the minority. They know our accent really well just because they watch a lot of American TV shows and movies. So I'd be in the grocery store and I'd kind of forget and I would say something and everyone would just kind of look at me. So it was very different, but it was also really fun at the same time. I stayed in an international house, so there were a lot of different people from different countries there as well. So I think they kind of had the same experience, but all the Australians were very welcoming. So
you stayed in iHouse, so you met people from all over, or
Yes.
did you make friends from different countries?
I had friends from China, Japan, Norway, South Korea, Australia. There were some Australians that stayed in there as well, which was really nice. So it definitely widened my perspective on things.
Now, those friends that you met from Australia, were you able to go visit where they were from, like you said? Different parts of
yes.
Australia?
I went to go to Canberra, where one of them was from, Kiama. Those were the two I went to, but there were also some from the mountains that some of my other friends got to go visit in other places.
That's awesome. University of Wollongong is where you took classes, and like you said, it's much larger than Hanover. So how did the classes and the grading compare to Hanover?
It was quite different. It took a little getting used to. They had bigger lectures, so probably around anywhere from 50 to 150 students could be in a lecture. But then they had smaller tutorials, which were more Hanover class size. I'd say like 20 to 25 students. And that's where most of the discussions went on. Grading, they have a whole different scale. So they'd have a high distinction, credit, and it transferred back very differently. I know a credit is about a B- here, and a lot of my Australian friends were really excited if they were getting a credit, and you're like, that's great. And it was very interesting because that's not how we see it here.
Right, a B- would not be, people wouldn't be excited about it here in Hanover is what you're saying. Well, it depends on the class, I guess.
Yes, that's true too.
Personally, I know that studying abroad just takes months of preparation, and I only went for 3 weeks. So can you tell me about how you prepared for a whole semester abroad?
I started applying very early on in the semester before. I applied for a student visa, a passport. I applied to Wollongong University, and I also had to fill out an application for Hanover to be able to study abroad. So it took a lot of preparation, but Ushi was great. She helped me through all the steps of it.
Okay. Hanover is pretty expensive, as we all know, but they do offer financial aid and scholarships that make it more affordable for most students. So what was the price difference between going to Hanover for a semester and going to Wollongong for a semester?
It actually equaled out, which was awesome. All the scholarships and everything, all the loans transfer over, so it's the same price. The only difference would be the passport and student visa, but you'd have to pay that wherever you travel.
Did Hanover give you any kind of aid when you went there?
Yes, you get a $500 travel stipend, which is really nice and helps out with the student visa, so it pretty much equals out.
Okay, so that's awesome. That's great information for people who want to study abroad in Australia, and they might think it's out of their budget, but so it's the same cost as going to Hanover for the semester. But speaking of money, what was the currency in Australia, and what's the conversion?
They had Australian dollars. When I went, it was about even. The American dollar was a little less than the Australian dollar, but it evened out pretty well. Their money, I don't have any of the paper money here, but it's really colorful, a little more plasticky, which is pretty cool. But I did bring one of the coins. This is a 50-cent piece, and it has an emu and a kangaroo on it, so it's pretty exciting. It's a little different than our quarters or anything we have.
Yeah, looks a little bigger as well.
Yeah, a little bigger.
Around, as you probably know, around 40% of students at Hanover are athletes. Mm-hmm. And I know that you're an athlete and you played 4 years of varsity soccer. So when you went to Australia, how were the sports viewed over there?
Sports were a lot different. They did have professional rugby leagues, which was different and fun. But as far as college sports, they were not focused nearly as much. They actually didn't have varsity or like Division I, Division II, anything like that. They did have club sports, but it was just a very much more laid-back atmosphere. And college was more focused on schoolwork rather than any type of sports.
Right, but you did say you played some intramurals while you were there?
I did. It was really fun. We actually had competitions between, they call them the dorms colleges. So that was a little different, but there were competition between the colleges that way. So it was just fun to get out there, play some soccer.
Right, so you didn't miss out on it. I know that one of the most important things on college students' minds when they're going somewhere new is the food, or at least it's to me. I know you ate mostly on campus, so tell me about the food and how was it?
The food was very interesting. I ate at International House because that was our meal plan, and it was really bland, and they didn't have like a buffet style or anything like the campus center. It was you get one portion and then after everyone's eaten you can come back for seconds later, which is probably good for me. But yeah, they didn't have very many sauces or dressings or anything, but I did find things in the stores that I liked and supplemented with. These are Tim Tams. They are chocolate cookies, which I almost always had to pack in my room. So
they're like Keebler cookies, or?
Yes, they taste a lot like Keebler cookies. So that was definitely good. And then the food in the actual restaurants was good as well. Still a little more bland, but it was awesome. So.
The question is do these taste as good now that you're back with American food?
That was interesting. I was curious about that. They still taste pretty good, but I'd say they're not as good as some of the desserts we have here.
I'm not gonna lie, I had one, and I wasn't blown away. But I do know that being away from home for 6 whole months is enough to drive most students away from studying abroad. But you went ahead and did it, and how did you handle being away from home and missing your family and everything?
Being away from home was difficult at first. It really helped having Sarah and Kristen there from Hanover. And honestly, International House helped a lot with that as well because it's basically like a family. They became a community and where we all became very close. So that was nice. I was able to communicate by Facebook too. So that was nice. And I did have a prepaid phone, so I could call back home.
That's awesome. So you were able to talk to your family and everything?
Yes.
And then did anyone come to visit you while you were there?
My sister actually got to come to visit, which was awesome. She got to come for a week, and she really enjoyed it. I got to show her around the campus, just Australian life in general. She was blown away that I could walk 15 minutes and be on the beach. She was a little jealous of that, but she was really glad to visit.
I'm jealous of that, too. I know you said earlier that the lingo was one of the hardest things to get used to when you got to Australia, but what was the hardest thing to get used to when you got back to the U.S.?
When I got back, it was the same. The time difference was really weird. I was up at 6 a.m. going on runs because I was just so off my time zone. And also just coming back to the lifestyle in general. After you've lived somewhere for 6 months, just everything seems different when you get back, including the food and just interactions. And I would go to say something and realize that they don't say that here. So.
Yeah. How was it coming back to Hanover?
It was nice. Honestly, it wasn't that different because I feel like it was the beginning of the school year, so everyone had been gone over the summer, so that was nice. And it wasn't too hard to adjust back to that.
Yeah. Everyone that I have ever talked to that's spent a semester abroad has said that it's been just life-changing. So what is the most important lesson you learned while you were abroad?
I think it made me realize that I can really live anywhere and you can make anywhere your home. While it may be different cultures and hard to adjust at first, you learn so many lessons and learn just about yourself. And I learned independence and just what I really wanted in life.
That's awesome. If someone wanted to study abroad in Australia that was already a Hanover student, what would be their first steps, and like what advice would you give them?
First steps would be talking to Ushi. She was very helpful. I would plan out your class schedules just so you know, while a lot of the classes do fit in very well, just planning out which ones you'd like to take. You can look at previous course schedule or course catalogs and everything that they have to see what you'd be interested in.
Okay, so you schedule your classes here before you go over, or? You
actually schedule them there, but before you go over, you send over a list of classes that you would like to take so that they know you're prepared and they'll know like which ones can transfer over and everything.
Okay, that's good. Well, even though I don't like lizards or any kind of like wildlife like that, your experience sounds wonderful, and it makes me jealous, and it makes me wish I would have went with you and been by the beach. But I really hope that this interview has answered some questions for students who are interested in studying abroad, especially in Australia. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. So thank you for watching this episode of Student Spotlight, and be sure to tune in next time. I'm your host, Allison Craig.